Hi everybody, Martin Murphy here from Syncona. I'm delighted to tell you today about a new investment we've made in a company called Clade Therapeutics. We've just announced an $87 million financing, Series A financing in the company. Syncona is the largest investor and led the round alongside other specialist investors. And this is an investment in a field called allogeneic cell therapy. Many of our investors will already be familiar with the cell therapy investments we've made. And the difference here is that this is our first allogeneic investment. The investments we've made today have been using an approach called autologous cell therapy. By way of background, autologous is when a patient's own cells are used for therapy. So when you have a cancer patient, you extract their own immune cells, engineer those cells outside the body, and use that as the mechanism of therapy. Allogeneic is where you use a healthy donor's cells. And that is a process which has certain advantages because those cells can be made in bulk outside of the environment of the hospital and the patient environment. And in theory, that approach, if it were possible, would deliver therapies that would be more easily administered to the patient. So there are certain advantages for allogeneic cell therapy. As we'll discuss, it has proven a very demanding approach for certain reasons, and we think that Clade is well positioned to address those. And so today, this is our first foray into the allogeneic cell therapy field, and we're really delighted to announce it to you. So Clade is developing a form of science called induced pluripotent stem cells, or as we call them more easily, iPSCs. And stem cells are cells that have a potential to divide almost perpetually. And what stem cells are able to do is to differentiate into a downstream number of different cell types. And the great advantage of iPSC cells is that if you have those cells cultured in an industrial facility, you can create a large perpetual cell bank from which you can regularly draw portions of that bank to be differentiated into cells that you're interested in. Again, many of our investors will be familiar that we use T cells, a form of immune cell, as effective cancer therapies. So the idea here would be, for example, that you would have a bank of iPSC cells and you would then differentiate them into, for example, T cells. There could be many other cells that you would use, and then you would administer those T cells to patients in large number. So that's a very nice idea. There are two real issues with that approach. The first issue is that you have to be able to differentiate the stem cells, the iPSC cells, reliably and consistently into T cells, and Clade have some technology here. And the second is that you need to be able to shield those cells from the patient's immune system. And the reason, of course, is that if you're using a donor, effectively, that donor will not be genetically the same as the patient. And therefore, when those cells are put into the patient, they will be rejected by the patient. And one of the things we've learned in cell therapy is that we need the cells to stick around. Technically, we call that persistence, in order to see significant effects, particularly in oncology. And so one of the core questions in the field, in the allogeneic cell therapy field, is how do we shield the grafted cells, the cells that we're putting back, from the onslaught they receive from the patient's own immune systems that's trying to reject them. And this then is exactly what Clade are doing. They have technology to take iPSC cells, these stem cells, to differentiate them into a variety of different cells of potential utility in cancer and beyond. And not only differentiate them, but also to be able to shield them or cloak them, in the language that we use in the company, to cloak them, to protect them from the immune system of the patient. And putting those two things together, we think that's really potentially a huge step forward, because it allows an industrial system to be created that would have a bank of these iPSC cells, be reliably creating multiple products from them, and we would have confidence that when we put them in patients, they would be cloaked and would have sufficient persistence in order to deliver the clinical efficacy that we want to see. Obviously, we have great expertise in the cell therapy field, and we have a number of companies operating with autologous approaches. Autolus, for example, we're very excited about the Auto1 program, now in a pivotal study for the treatment of relapsed refractory adult leukemia, type of leukemia called ALL. We're certainly very excited about Achilles with their program, which is for the treatment of solid tumors with a form of autologous cell therapy called TIL therapy, and specifically in the Achilles case, a selective form of that TIL therapy. So we're familiar with this space, and we see in all of those companies patient applications where autologous therapy is very well suited to those diseases. However, we see a set of other diseases where allogeneic, if you could bring it through the clinic, demonstrate safety and efficacy, would have huge application outside the existing places where our autologous companies are positioned. And we've been looking and following that space with great interest. Companies such as Fate, for example, who have taken actually iPSC cells and differentiated them into a form of cell called a natural killer cell, and we're now seeing the clinical data emerging from that. And we followed other approaches of allogeneic cell therapy, for example, CRISPR Therapeutics Allogene, and we've been tracking this field for quite some time and been trying to find a good place for us to make an investment and start to build a company. I was contacted some time ago now by Jim Glasheen. Jim and I worked together. I've known Jim for over 20 years. We worked together almost 20 years ago now, and we've always stayed in contact. Jim is the Chief Business Officer at Clade. And when in the early days of Clade, just when the company was being set up or just shortly after it had been set up, Jim reached out and suggested that we had a call and introduced me to Chad Cowan, the CEO of the business. And it was really through that introduction that we started to build relationships with the team, understand what they were doing. On the Syncona side, it's really been three of us who have worked very closely as a group in prosecuting this opportunity, particularly Freddie Deer and Michael Kyriakides have really sort of led from the front, and I'm the third team member in that. So that's how we sourced the opportunity, and we worked that up over the last few months prior to making our investment. Clade is led by Chad Cowan, who is really an exceptional individual. We've gotten to know Chad well over the last few months. Chad's background has a strong track record in basic science. He was an associate professor at Harvard in the Department of Stem Cell Biology and Regenerative Medicine. He also has an extensive biotech background. He was a co-founder of CRISPR Therapeutics and was the first chief scientific officer at Sana Biotechnology. And so this business is led by a pioneer in the field with a strong track record in the biotech business as well. I mentioned Jim Glasheen. Jim is the president and chief business officer. Jim, I've known for 20 years. He has a strong investment background, actually, but also a biotech business. He was a founder of Atlanta Therapeutics and plays a key role in this business as the chief business officer and president. This is a broad team. We have other team members here, Leandro Vetra, Grant Wellstead and Katie Ausgen, and one of the key attractions to us in working with this team was we felt there was a real bench strength and ability of this team to execute on a plan of this both ambition and this complexity. We've worked well with the team as we were beginning to understand the company and really conduct our diligence process, and we formed a strong relationship with them since we've closed the transaction, which has been closed for a few months now, and we look forward to working with them in the years to come. As I mentioned before, it's very much a team effort on the Syncona side in getting to the point of making this new investment. Freddie Deer and Michael Kyriakides have really led from the front on the Syncona side and will continue to play pivotal roles going forward. Freddie is an observer to the board, and I will also actually be a director on the board. And we look forward to working with the company as it moves through its preclinical development and takes its first programs into the clinic. This is an area, as I mentioned, that we know well, and I think we can bring significant expertise here to potential applications in both the solid tumor and the liquid tumor space, the hematological cancer space. To close out, this brings our portfolio now to 12 companies, and we're excited to announce Clade to you today and look forward to keeping you posted on the company as it develops in the months and years to come.